My dad tossed a bare keychain onto the kitchen table. He smiled like he had just hit the jackpot. "Your house paid for their little vacation," he said. I had just gotten back from a business trip. I was standing there in a wrinkled jacket, holding my duffel bag, my boarding pass still shoved in my pocket. I thought I'd drop by my parents' apartment for 10 minutes before heading over to check on my house, but instead, sitting on their table was a bare metal ring. My keys were gone. Meanwhile, my younger brother, Ryan, was chilling at a beach resort. He had just posted a photo. Nice hotel, waterfront restaurant, crisp white shirt. I looked at my dad. I looked at my mom, who was standing quietly by the window. Then I looked at that empty keychain. And I realized something. They didn't just take what was mine. They honestly expected me to just swallow it and stay quiet. I didn't scream. I didn't lunge at them. I didn't even ask how my own flesh and blood could do something so sick. I just picked up the empty keychain with 2 fingers and smiled. "Why are you so calm?" my dad snapped, his confidence slipping. And I answered, "Because the house you just sold didn't belong to you." At that moment, they didn't know they hadn't actually sold a house. What they sold was a lie. They sold it to a man who knew exactly how to count his money. And they sold it to a daughter who had spent her whole life calculating costs for other people. And was now, for the very first time, calculating the true cost of her own family. If you know what it's like when relatives treat your hard-earned money as their own, hit the like button. And tell me honestly in the comments after something like this. Can you still call these people family? It all started with the front gate. The gate at my house always stuck. You had to lift it a little with your knee before pulling it open. I knew that motion by heart. It wasn't a mansion. It was an old, single-story fixer-upper in the suburbs. It had green window trims, an apple tree in the front, and a shed that smelled like damp pine wood. Not a palace, but it was mine. I bought it myself. I was in my early 30s, working as a project estimator for a construction firm for years. I calculated the costs of other people's walls, roofs, and plumbing. And at night, I counted my own pennies. I rented a crappy apartment near the train station. I worked my day job, took on side hustles, and skipped vacations entirely. That's how I saved up the down payment. When I got the official deed from the county clerk and saw my name on it, Natalie Miller, sole owner, I just sat there holding the folder on my lap for a long time. My parents came to see the house on the first Saturday. My dad walked through the rooms with his hands behind his back, like a building inspector. He used to be a maintenance supervisor. So to him, everything was wrong. This wasn't nailed right. That was standing in the wrong spot. This needed to be torn down. My mom brought blueberry muffins. She immediately went into the kitchen to wash the coffee mugs, even though the mugs were still packed in a cardboard box. "Don't worry, Nut," she said. "You'll settle in. It's the family home now." I didn't even catch how that phrase slipped into the conversation. I don't remember who said it first. Maybe Mom, maybe Dad echoed it later. But the phrase stuck. "Mom? It's not a family home," I replied. "It's my house. I bought it." "Why are you getting so defensive?" Mom set the grocery bag on the windowsill. "They aren't strangers," Dad scoffed from the hallway. "Don't be so cold, Natalie. The house is in the family, which makes it a family home." I stayed quiet. The folder with my closing documents was sitting right there on the table. I wanted to say, the family didn't pay the bank. The family didn't budget for every gallon of paint. The family didn't put off going to the dentist for a year to save money. But I held my tongue. I didn't want to start a fight in my brand new house. By evening, my younger brother, Ryan, showed up. He always had a way of arriving, like everyone had been holding their breath waiting for him. He tossed his car keys on the lawn, walked up to the porch, and looked around the yard. "Oh, nice," he said. "Set up a grill over there. Blow up a pool here. Honestly, beautiful setup. I need to get the electrical wiring checked first." I said, "Oh, come on. You gotta know how to relax. Mon perché dup, Aryan. Sweetie. You want a muffin?" He grabbed two, sat on the porch steps, and started talking about the ocean. He mentioned a buddy who could get him a discount. An all-inclusive resort. The works. I listened, and I already knew exactly where this was going. "Not. Can you do me a solid?" he finally asked. "How much?" "Oh, don't give me that look. It's not like I'm asking for $1,000,000. He named a serious number. To him, not $1,000,000 always meant a lot of money. But he liked to act like it was pocket change. "For your vacation?" I asked. "Well, yeah. While the prices are still good. Don't you have a car payment due?" "Everyone has car payments." He shrugged. "I don't." He took a bite of his muffin and smirked. "You just bought a house. So obviously you have cash lying around. I'll pay you back." Mom suddenly turned away to look at the garden. Dad started picking at the edge of the table with his thumbnail. I waited for someone to tell Ryan, "Stop it. Your sister is paying for renovations. Every dime she has is accounted for." Nobody said a word. "No," I said. "What do you mean?" "No, I mean I'm not giving you the money." "Wow. Unbelievable." Ryan scoffed. "My own sister." "Your own sister already paid for your new tires, your speeding tickets, and your security deposit last year." I'm done. "Oh. Here we go." Ryan tossed the rest of his muffin back into the bag. "You always keep a scoreboard. When I'm the one paying." "Yes. I remember." Mom spoke up quietly. "Natalie. Please. Not in front of everyone." "In front of who?" "Mom, we're family." "Right." The words slipped out before I could stop them. Mom fell silent. Dad looked at me like I had just committed a crime. Ryan walked back to his car and slammed the door. Dad followed him out to the gate. And they talked for a long time. I couldn't hear the words, just the low rumble of my dad's voice. A couple of weeks later, my boss sent me on a business trip. It was a standard assignment. A project in the neighboring state. A contractor was inflating the billing reports, and I had to go audit their materials. I was actually glad to get away. At home, the conversations were constantly revolving around Ryan. "He's the youngest. He needs to live a little. You're strong. Natalie. You'll figure it out." I was sick and tired of being strong just to fund someone else's debts. On Monday morning, I swung by my parents' apartment before heading to the train station. Mom opened the door in her bathrobe. Her hair held up with a claw clip. Onions were sizzling in a pan in the kitchen. Dad was sitting by the window in his undershirt, eating eggs straight out of the skillet. "Mom, I'm gone for a week," I said, pulling out my spare set of keys. "Here are the keys to the house. Please water the geraniums on the windowsill." "Okay. And don't drown the seedlings." Mom took the keys and squeezed them in her palm. "Of course I'll water them. Why are you explaining it to me?" "Because nobody else is allowed in. Don't open the shed. Don't touch any documents." "Good Lord. Natalie. Who do you think I am?" Dad coughed loudly. "A house goes stale without people in it. It needs to be aired out." "You can open a window," I said. "But I'm leaving these keys for watering plants, not for giving tours." "We hear you. We hear you." Mom quickly shoved the keys into her bathrobe pocket. Go on. You'll miss your train. I'll take care of it. At the door? She fixed the collar of my jacket. Like I was still a schoolgirl. She smelled like soap and fried onions. In moments like that, I always thought how much harm could they really do, their mom and dad. Don't tell Ryan you have the keys. I added. What does he have to do with anything? Nothing. Just don't tell him. Natalie. Stop treating us like children. I took an Uber to the station with my work briefcase and a light duffel bag. The official deed to the house was locked in the bottom drawer of my dresser at home. The keys were in my mom's pocket. At the time, I thought it was a small detail. The keys weren't the most important thing. The most important thing was the trust I had just placed in my mother's hands. On my trip, they put me up in a cheap motel right off the highway. My window faced a tire shop. A neon sign flashed all night. And the thin curtains didn't help at all. During the day, I sat in the contractor's trailer, crossing out inflated numbers on their invoices. The foreman was furious. The accountant kept sighing dramatically. My coffee got cold in its styrofoam cup faster than I could drink it. On Tuesday, Mom texted watered the flowers. I replied, thanks. That was it. On Wednesday, I saw Ryan's vacation photo. I was standing by the office printer, waiting for a spreadsheet. My phone buzzed. On the screen, my brother was lounging on a white beach chair, wearing designer sunglasses. A cocktail with a little straw sat next to him. Behind him was a luxury resort. Perfectly manicured palm trees. A private terrace. I zoomed in on the photo. Then zoomed in closer. Sitting on the little table was a premium room keycard. He had gone on the trip way too early. Just a few days ago. He was begging me for cash and got rejected. He never had that kind of money just sitting in his bank account. I called my mom. Mom? Ryan flew out. Where? Don't play dumb. I saw the pictures. I heard a spoon clinking against a mug on her end. Well? Yeah. He flew out. Let the young people relax. With what money? Mom, why are you always counting other people's money? Natalie. Because he literally just begged me for money. Which means he got it from somewhere else. Mom went silent. I don't know. Sweetheart. Ask your father later. What does Dad have to do with this? Nothing. I'm just saying. She was talking way too fast. Mom always did that when she was lying. She did it when lying about the price of her shoes, about her blood pressure, and about Ryan paying her back. Is everything okay with my house? I asked. What would be wrong with the house? I'm asking you. Is it fine? Did you water the plants, close the windows? Do you still have the keys? Me, yes. I have them. Good Lord. Give it a rest. She sounded offended. Or at least she pretended to be. I put my phone away because the foreman walked out of his office and yelled. Are the numbers ready? I had to get back to work. But the spreadsheets were blurring together. That evening, around 8 p.m., I got a text from Brenda, my neighbor. I had given her my number right after I bought the place. Brenda was a loud, nosy woman. But she was incredibly observant. She was the kind of neighbor who would notice if your gate was unlatched. Or bring over a jar of homemade pickles just to see what you were up to. Her message was short. There are strangers at your house. I read it. Then I immediately called her. Brenda. What strangers? Oh. Honey. I don't know. She whispered. Even though she was normally loud enough to be heard 3 houses down. Some guy was walking around with your dad. With my dad, yeah. They were standing by the gate. Then they went inside. I sat down heavily on the edge of my motel bed. The springs creaked loudly. When Friday, I think, or Thursday. It was really windy. I was taking laundry off the line. Can't remember exactly. They opened the house. Well, yeah. They used keys. I didn't say anything. Maybe you gave them permission, the neighbor added quickly. I'm not trying to pry. I just saw a stranger looking around. I thought I should let you know. You did the right thing. Thank you. Who was the stranger? A guy with a clipboard. Drove up in a black SUV. Not from around here. Your dad was showing him the shed. Did they take anything out? No. I just walked around looking at things. Later. I think your mom drove up. Looked like her from a distance. I asked Brenda to call me immediately if anyone else showed up. She agreed. And then casually asked, "You're not selling the place, are you?" Because they were looking at it like they were trying to buy it. After those words, I walked into the motel bathroom, turned on the faucet, and just held my hands under the cold water. No soap. I just stood there. I called Mom. She didn't answer. I called Dad. He sent it straight to voicemail. A few minutes later, Mom texted, "Can't talk." At the doctor's office, it was almost 9 p.m. I texted back who was at my house with Dad. The reply came a few minutes later, "Nobody. Brenda is making up stories again. She saw a random guy on the street. Dad was just airing the place out. A buddy of his stopped by to say hi. Nothing happened." What buddy, Natalie? I'm exhausted. We will talk when you get back. We will talk when you get back. In our family, that phrase always meant, you are not going to get the truth right now. It meant they would sit me down at the table. Ipomati. Dad would start raising his voice to intimidate me. Mom would sigh and cry. Ryan would say something stupid. And somehow, I would end up being the bad guy. The next day, I made a mistake on my cost estimates. That rarely happened to me. The contractor got cocky. "Look at you. Cutting our budget when you can't even run your own math." "I'll fix it," I said. And I did. But my head was miles away. I was thinking about my front gate. About the stranger with a clipboard. About my mom's bathrobe pocket. And about Ryan on a white lounge chair. On my lunch break, I went out to get coffee from a gas station next to the motel. The cashier was watching a tiny TV where a guy was demonstrating how to put up wallpaper, repeating that prep work is everything. I burned my tongue on the cheap coffee and called Ian Lewis. Ian used to be an intern at our construction firm before he quit to become a real estate agent. We weren't incredibly close, but he had helped me review the title documents before I bought my house. "What's up, boss lady?" he answered. "Ian, I need you to check something for me." No questions asked. I quickly explained about the keys, the stranger at my house, and my brother's sudden luxury vacation. Ian asked a few quick questions, then went silent. "Hello, I'm here. Text me the address." Why I'm going to check the MLS archives. Sometimes, even if a listing is pulled, you can still find the cached version. "Do you really think they tried to list my house? I don't think anything yet. Just send the address." An hour later, he called back. I stepped out of the conference room and into the hallway. "Did you find it?" I asked. "Not. The listing is already taken down." I leaned my back against the wall. "What listing? For your address?" The street number was hidden in the title. "But the photos are exactly your place. The green gate, the apple tree, the porch." The asking price was way below market value. "And the contact number isn't yours." "Whose is it? Don't know yet. But the description said, for sale by owner. Family home. All documents ready. Looking for a fast cash close." The words family home hit me harder than the low price. I stared at the fire evacuation plan on the wall, tracing the red arrows to the exit, and realized I had no idea how to get out of this. When was it listed? Early this week. It was pulled down after 2 days. That usually only happens if they found a cash buyer or already took an earnest money deposit. They can't sell it. The deed is legally in my name. Legally. No. And illegally they can take a cash deposit based on a fake promise. Write up a bogus receipt. And hand over the keys. Then the angry buyer comes to your door. And it turns into a massive legal nightmare. I have the official deed at home. That's good. But listen to me carefully. Do not call them right now. Do not scream at them. Screenshot the listing I just sent you. Save the texts with your neighbor. Save your call logs. You're talking like I'm building a criminal case. I'm talking like someone is actively messing with your property while you're out of town. That evening, Mom called me herself. I was sitting on the windowsill of my motel room, my laptop warming my legs. Through the thin wall, I could hear a guy trying to explain to his wife on the phone that it was just a business trip. Natalie. Why are you scaring people? Mom started right in. Scaring who you called Brenda. You called some guy named Ian. Your father is furious. Why is Dad furious? Because you're making a mountain out of a molehill. You know how you get? Mom. There was a real estate listing for my house. She went dead silent. It was a brief pause. But I heard it. What listing? I didn't see a listing. There are so many scammers online right now. The photos showed my exact gate. Maybe they stole old photos from the internet. I just bought the house. Mom? She let out a heavy sigh. Can you just talk to your father when you get back? No. Tell me right now. Did you show my house to a stranger, on her end of the line? The water faucet turned on. She always did that when she wanted to avoid a direct answer. Your father was just talking to a guy. The man was asking questions. Nothing happened. Did you unlock the house? Well? Yes. We opened it. It needed to be aired out. Mom? Natalie. What do you want from me? You gave me the keys yourself. Are you calling us thieves? I took my laptop off my legs. I gave you the keys to water my plants. Yeah. I remember your precious plants. She snapped abruptly. Everything is yours now. Isn't it your house? Your money. Your rules. Where does family fit into that? I didn't answer. Mom lowered her voice, trying to sound sweet again. Ryan isn't a stranger. The boy just wanted one nice vacation in his life. And you're tough. Natalie, you always figure things out. Did you give him my money? When you get back? She hung up. I looked at my phone. Then I looked at the Excel spreadsheet on my laptop. The cursor was blinking in an empty cell. I typed out my final notes on the roofing estimate. It's end. And laid awake almost the entire night. Right before dawn, Ian texted me. Traced the contact number. Looks like the buyer's name is Marcus Vance. I'm not interfering yet. We'll handle it when you get back. The name meant nothing to me. But now, the stranger with the clipboard had a name. And my mother's nothing happened had a price tag. On Friday, I finished the audit early. The contractor signed the corrected paperwork looking like I had personally robbed him. I packed up my folders, double-checked my train ticket, and called Brenda the neighbor before heading to the station. Did they come back? I asked. Who? Natalie, to the house. No. I don't think so. I was visiting my sister today. If they show up, should I tell them something? Don't talk to them. Just call me, and Brenda. Did my parents try to sell my house? She grew quiet. Listen. Honey. I saw the keys right at the gate. Your dad was dangling the keychain in front of the guy. I can't swear he handed them over. I won't lie. But the guy definitely had them in his hands. Will you be willing to repeat that later? I can, she said quickly. I saw what I saw. I got on the train and stared out the window the entire ride. Gray fields. Small town stations. Women hauling heavy bags on the platforms. The train car smelled like fast food and wet raincoats. The guy sitting across from me was rustling his newspaper so loudly I wanted to scream at him. But I stayed perfectly quiet. My phone buzzed on the little folding table. Mom didn't text again. Neither did Dad. Ryan had posted a new photo, holding a cocktail. The ocean behind him. Ah, Smoog. Satisfied smile on his face. The caption read, "You only live once." I locked my screen. I didn't know about the promissory note yet. I didn't know that on Monday, my dad would drop an empty keychain in front of me and say the exact words that would permanently destroy our family. All I knew, sitting on that train with my work briefcase on my lap, I was one thing I had to get there before my house completely stopped being mine, at least in their heads. My dad dropped the keychain with the little greenhouse charm onto the kitchen table. He slapped it down like he was handing me exact change at a grocery store. "We used your house to cover Ryan's trip," he said. I was standing in the doorway with my duffel bag on my shoulder. My jacket still had the dry cleaning tag stapled to the cuff. I had forgotten to rip it off before my business trip. My mother, Valeria, was sitting by the window, meticulously peeling an orange. Even though we only ever bought oranges around Christmas, she was stacking the peels in a perfectly neat pile on a saucer. Dad wasn't looking at me. He was staring at the ugly floral tablecloth. I didn't say a word. I slipped the bag off my shoulder and set it down next to a bar stool. Then, I picked up the metal ring. It only held the little greenhouse charm. The actual keys were gone. "Because you had absolutely no right to sell it," I said. "Natalie, don't start," Dad ordered. Just like that. Not forgive us. Not we messed up. Not even let us explain. Just don't start. I had arrived in town early that morning. The client signed off on my audit with zero pushback. So my boss let me take the overnight train back. My plan was simple: swing by my parents' place, grab my spare keys, go home, and check on my plants. When Mom opened the door, she looked sleepy, wearing her faded floral bathrobe. But sitting right there in the entryway was a pair of men's shoes. Dress shoes with square toes. They weren't Dad's. Dad wore beat-up, creased loafers. "Who's here?" I asked. "Nobody." "Nobody's here." Mom pulled her bathrobe tighter. "Why are you back so early?" Dad's voice boomed from the kitchen. "Litarian. Stop hiding." I walked into the kitchen. And right there, sitting on the table, was my empty keychain. "Where are my keys?" I asked. Dad pushed the sugar bowl to the side, like it was in his way. "With the guy who gave us the cash." "What guy?" "The buyer," Dad said flatly. "You're not a child, Natalie. You understand how this works." Mom stayed completely quiet. "Mom? Not? Why are you using that tone?" she finally whimpered. "We aren't strangers. That house was just sitting there empty anyway." "It's not empty. Everything I bought for myself is in there." "What is in there that's so special?" "A cheap table and some canned pickles in the basement. My life," I said. I walked over and sat down at the table. My legs were aching from the long train ride. Sitting on the windowsill was Mom's potted geranium, the exact kind of plant I used to hate as a kid because of the smell. "What exactly did you do?" I asked calmly. "We sold it," Dad said. "Well, technically. We took the earnest money. The rest comes later. We're getting the paperwork drawn up." "What paperwork?" "Standard real estate papers." "Stop interrogating me," Mom spoke up, her voice dropping to a pathetic whisper. "Not, honey." Ryan really needed it. He already booked the resort, and his new girlfriend is with him. It would have been so humiliating to cancel in front of her. Humiliating in front of her friends. I let out a harsh, dry laugh. And because of that, you gave the keys to my house to a complete stranger. Dad tapped his thick finger hard against the table. He's not a stranger. He's a respectable businessman. Marcus Vance owns a warehouse over by the commercial district. He brought the cash in hand. $40,000. I leaned forward. How much 40,000? Dad repeated, puffing his chest out a little. Not a penny less. Mom shifted uncomfortably in her chair, but kept her mouth shut. Where's the money? I asked. It's gone. What does it matter? Dad snapped. It went to the family. To Ryan. To the family. I repeated coldly. I pulled out my phone and pulled up the photo Ryan posted from his luxury suite. He was smiling, holding up a mojito. The caption read, "Finally, getting the vacation I deserve." I shoved the phone screen right in my mother's face. Is this the family? Mom looked away. He's young. Natalie. He wants to live a little. And you? I don't want to live, you're strong. Mom said quickly. You always bounce back. I stood up. Dad stood up too. Slowly. Carrying that heavy, authoritative stance he used to use when he bossed around janitors at his old job. Sit down, he ordered. This conversation isn't over. My conversation with you is absolutely over. But my conversation with the guy you gave my keys to is just starting. Hold on. Mom lunged forward and grabbed my sleeve. Don't go to him right now. We already explained things to him. Explained what? Mom opened her mouth, then closed it. Dad answered for her. That you agreed to the sale. The kitchen went dead silent. Repeat that, I said. Don't give me orders in my own house, Dad barked. We told him you agreed. You said yourself the house was a financial burden. I said the roof needed replacing. Same difference. Abuden. Mom chimed in, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. Not. Sweetie. We didn't want to bother you. If we told you, you would have started calculating pennies and stressing out, and we needed to move fast. I gave you the keys to water my plants. I watered the plants, Mom cried out, pressing a napkin to her eyes to force a tear. Stop treating me like a criminal. I didn't tell you because I knew you'd be rude about it. Dad pulled his phone out of his pocket. I'm calling Ryan right now. Let him talk to you. Since you want to act like a prosecutor, I don't need to, he already hit FaceTime. Ryan answered on the second ring. The camera jerked around a white ceiling, then settled on his deeply tanned face. Loud pool music bumped in the background. Hey, Dad. What's up? We're at the breakfast buffet. Your sister is here, Dad said. She's throwing a fit. Oh. Not. Seriously, Ryan rolled his eyes. You know where the money came from? Right, I know. And you're perfectly fine with this, look. You were just gonna live in that dump alone anyway. Ryan laughed. Chewing on something? The house is old. The neighborhood sucks. You need a normal condo. Not a creepy cabin. I snatched the phone out of my dad's hand. On the screen, the crystal clear water of a resort pool sparkled right behind my brother's shoulder. Ryan. It is my house. Oh. Whatever. Your house. He groaned. You bought a shack, and now you act like the Queen of England. Just let Mom and Dad handle it. I paid the down payment. My name is on the deed. It is legally mine. Ryan cringed. God. Always with your stupid paperwork. Just figure it out with them, but do not ruin my vacation. The roaming charges are crazy here. He hung up. Dad snatched the phone back and shoved it into his pocket. I grabbed my duffel bag and headed for the front door. Natalie. Where are you going? Mom panicked. You just got off a train. At least eat something, give me the buyer's address. I demanded. I'm not giving you anything. Dad yelled from the kitchen. Then my next stop is the police precinct. Dad marched into the hallway. His face was flushing a deep, angry red. Are you completely insane? You're going to call the cops on your own father. You sold my house. I took earnest money, the deed hasn't transferred yet, and you gave him my keys. Yes. I gave him the keys, Dad shouted. The guy needs to get contractor quotes. He already ordered building materials. Building materials? Another heavy rock dropped into my stomach. I pulled out my phone and dialed Ian right there in the hallway. He answered, sounding half asleep, but quickly snapped awake. Nut. Are you back in town? I need Marcus Vance. The guy who bought my house from my parents. Ian went silent for 2 full seconds. Damn it, he muttered. Where are you right now? Are you at your parents'? Yes. Do not go anywhere alone. Text me the address of the house and I'll pull the listing data right now. Dad lunged forward and ripped the phone out of my hand. He didn't hit me. He just forcefully yanked it away. Do not air family laundry in public, he snarled. I held out my hand. Give it back. When you calm down, I stared directly into his eyes. When I was a kid, his height and his booming voice used to terrify me. Not anymore. Give me the phone right now. Dad. Mom stood behind him, whispering frantically, Paul. Just give it to her. He slammed the phone down on the entryway table, so hard the case smacked against the mirror. The screen was still lit up. The call was still active. Not? Ian's voice came through the speaker. I hear him. Get out of there. Dad took a step toward the phone. But I snatched it first. I'm leaving now, I said. The elevator smelled like cheap cat food. On the ground floor, a neighbor from the 5th floor was carrying a bag of groceries. She said hello, I replied. But my voice didn't even sound like my own. Ian called me back 10 minutes later. I pulled the cached listing, he said quickly. The photos are definitely yours. Green gate. The apple tree with the support brace. The peeling paint on the porch. Yeah. The listing was live for 3 days. They pulled it down on Friday night. The seller was listed as Paul. Your dad's cell number. The asking price was dirt cheap. Suspiciously cheap. I stopped walking. A city bus pulled up to the stop next to me. People crowded toward the doors. I didn't get on. Ian. I need to find the buyer. Already on it. Marcus Vance. He runs a logistics office behind the Central Commercial District. The Industrial Park. Listen. Wait for me. I'm going with you. I can handle him. Natalie. Do not play the hero. If they signed a promissory note or an earnest money contract, this is going to get incredibly ugly. What contract? I heard. Ian let out a heavy breath. When cash buyers put down earnest money, they usually demand a signed receipt or a preliminary contract. If they forged your name on it. He trailed off. I never signed anything. I know you didn't. But the piece of paper might exist. A piece of paper. You can argue with a controlling father. You can't argue with a signed legal document. I finally made it to my house as the sun was setting. The front gate was locked with a brand new, heavy-duty padlock. Sitting on the front porch were 2 massive bags of concrete mix. The gate next door squeaked open. Natalie Brenda called out. She walked over wearing a thick cardigan, carrying a bowl of vegetable scraps. She always took scraps to the compost bin in the back. Did you see who came here? I asked. Brenda glanced nervously toward her own windows. I did. Honey, Friday afternoon. Your dad. Your mom. And a big, stocky guy. They stood by the gate, went inside, and passed the keys around. Brenda pursed her lips. I saw your dad hand the guy the whole keychain. I thought it was weird he was acting like the boss. You texted me you were out of town. Are you willing to confirm this officially? I am, she said quickly. Absolutely. Just tell me where. I'll tell the truth. I nodded. For the first time all day. I felt like I could actually take a full breath. Thank you. Brenda. She stepped closer to the chain link fence. You be careful with your mother. Though. She came over to my place yesterday. Started fishing around. Asking if I was spreading rumors to you. What did she say? Oh. Just rambling. Saying families need to stick together. Saying you have a hot temper. And Ryan is fragile and needs coddling. I let out a bitter laugh. Everyone coddles Ryan. Who coddles you? Brenda asked. Looking nervously toward the street. Anyway. It's getting dark. You go on. I took a photo of the new padlock. The bags of concrete. And the gate. Ian pulled up 20 minutes later in his beat-up gray sedan. He got out. I took one look at the new padlock. And didn't ask any stupid questions. We go see Marcus Vance tomorrow morning. Ian said. He won't take a meeting this late. I got a satana. Slot. Did you tell him who I am? I told him the actual homeowner wants to talk. He laughed at first, then he asked. The homeowner, according to who? I stood up straight. Okay. It's not okay. Ian sighed. But at least he agreed to sit down. I spent the night at my cramped apartment near the train station. My parents called me back to back. Over and over. I ignored them all. At 1:30 a.m. Mom texted, "Do not ruin Ryan's life." 10 minutes later. Another text, "Paul isn't feeling well. His blood pressure is spiking." I put my phone on silent and pulled out my homeownership folder. The purchase agreement. The deed from the county. The tax receipts. I wanted to have everything perfectly organized for the morning. The next morning, commercial delivery trucks were lined up outside Marcus Vance's warehouse. Men in heavy work jackets were smoking near the loading dock. The air smelled like diesel fuel and wet cardboard. Ian walked in with me. But I stepped into the office first. Marcus Vance was a stocky guy with a buzz cut. Sitting on his messy desk were shipping manifests and a coffee mug that said "Boss." "You're Natalie?" he asked. Leaning back in his chair. "I am. The house on Elm Street is mine." "Interesting," Marcus said flatly. "Your dad told me you were fully on board." Ian sat in a chair off to the side. "Staying quiet for now." I placed my official property deed on the desk. "The deed is registered with the county under my name. There is no transfer of ownership." Marcus picked up the paper and skimmed it. "I'm not arguing that it's in your name. They told me the final paperwork would be signed as soon as you got back from your business trip. They said you asked your parents to handle the legwork. I asked my mother to water my plants." Marcus let out a short, cynical laugh. "Sounds like a nice story. But my reality looks like this." He pulled a sheet of paper out of a manila folder and spun it around to face me. "Earnest money promissory note." I saw my full name. My driver's license number. My old billing address. The amount $40,000. And at the very bottom, a signature, N. Mila. But it wasn't my handwriting. I didn't reach for the paper immediately. "Can I take a closer look?" I asked. Marcus slammed his heavy hand flat over the document. "I'm not giving you the original. I'll make you a copy. I'm not looking to get screwed over here either." "Who signed this? Did my dad bring it to you already signed?" "Yeah. He said you signed it before you left town." "Your mother was standing right next to him." "Did you pay them in cash?" "Yeah." "Handed it directly to your dad?" "He counted it." "Your mother put it in her purse, then he handed me the keys." "I never signed this document." "Then you've got yourself some serious family drama," Marcus said coldly. "But I have 40 grand missing. If I don't get this house, I am filing a police report against everyone involved. Your father. Your mother. And you, because your name is on this contract. Ian leaned forward. Marcus. She was out of state on a corporate audit. We can prove that. Then she'll prove it to a judge. Marcus shot back. I handed over cash. I received keys. I was promised a closing date. There is no closing, I said firmly. Then give me my deposit back. I didn't take your money. As a buyer, I honestly do not care. Marcus snapped, his patience vanishing. Listen. Lady. I am not running a charity. Your dad walked me through the house. He swore you were desperate to sell. Your mom poured me iced tea on the back porch. The signature looked legit enough. How was I supposed to know you? People are running a circus. The signature did look somewhat like mine from a distance. If you didn't know better, you'd believe it. Because my dad had spent his whole life signing off on maintenance supply orders with those exact same aggressive, swooping loops. Make me a copy, I demanded. Marcus scoffed. And do what with it? I am going to find out exactly who forged my name. Lady. I don't care about your detective work. I want my cash, or I want my house. You are never getting my house. Marcus finally smiled. But there was no warmth in it. You're pretty confident for a girl in the middle of a felony fraud case. Bring me the copy. Now. You have until noon tomorrow to bring me a concrete plan on how I'm getting my 40 grand back. Otherwise, this piece of paper goes straight to the district attorney. Give her a little time. Man, Ian said quietly. I already gave them time. Marcus growled. I've been waiting since Friday. I already bought lumber. I already hired a roofing crew. He slammed his hand onto an old laser printer against the wall. The machine groaned and spat out a slightly faded copy with a gray streak running down the middle. Marcus grabbed a Sharpie, scrawled copy across the top, and shoved it toward me. Take it. I folded the paper perfectly in half. Outside, Ian lit a cigarette. Even though I had never seen him smoke in the 5 years I'd known him. I'm sorry. Nat, he said. For what? For not finding the listing fast enough. You did everything you could. It's just sickening. They priced it so low that any agent in town would know it was either a desperation sale or a scam. I'm going to pull the IP logs from the listing site. We need to build a paper trail. The gray streak from the printer ran directly through the forged signature. Brenda saw them hand over the keys. I reminded him. Perfect. That's massive. She promised to go on the record, yes. Ian crushed his cigarette against the rim of a trash can. Then we drive to Brenda's right now and get her statement recorded. Let's do it before she gets spooked. Ian looked at me, his face dead serious. We got into his car and drove back to my neighborhood. When we pulled up, Brenda was waiting by her front gate. But this time, she wasn't wearing her gardening clothes. She had her hair pinned up tightly and looked incredibly tense. She saw Ian get out of the car and completely froze. He's a friend, I said quickly. He's helping me. Oh. Okay. Well, make it quick. I have soup on the stove. Ian pulled out his phone and hit record. Brenda. Can you just tell us in your own words what you saw on Friday afternoon? Brenda cleared her throat nervously. Well? Friday. Right after lunch. A black SUV pulled up. Don't know the make. A guy got out. Then Paul and Valerie showed up. They unlocked Natalie's gate with her keys and went inside. Later, I saw Paul hand the whole keychain to the guy by the fence. Did you hear them say anything? Ian prompted. Paul told the guy, go ahead and change the locks. My daughter already agreed to it. I closed my eyes for a second. I wasn't crying. I just needed the darkness. Are you willing to repeat this statement to the authorities if necessary? Ian asked. I am, she said, her voice shaking slightly. Why should I be scared? I saw what I saw. Thank you. I breathed out. Brenda reached out and grabbed my hand. Her fingers were dry and covered in flour. Hang in there. Natalie. That house is yours. I remember you hauling those heavy wooden planks yourself. I remember you patching that roof. Don't let them take it. Ian saved the audio file and immediately texted it to me. That tiny gray audio file sitting in my messages held more truth than every single text my mother had sent me all week. We walked back out to the street. The heavy new padlock gleamed in the sunlight. Marcus wanted his money or my house. My parents wanted me to cower and surrender. But for the first time in days, I had a weapon. I just didn't realize how quickly that weapon was about to be stripped away from me. Later that evening, I went back to Brenda's house to drop off a box of pastries I bought as a thank you. I stood on her porch, ringing the doorbell. I could hear her shuffling around inside. The deadbolt clicked. Then the chain lock rattled. The door opened just a crack. Brenda peeked out. She was wearing a worn-out sweater. The smell of chicken noodle soup wafted out. The TV was blaring some medical talk show in the background. I can't do it. Natalie, she whispered, keeping her shoulder wedged against the door. Brenda, you just told us everything this morning. You saw my dad hand over the keys. I saw nothing. She glanced nervously past my shoulder toward the street. What do you mean? She let out a heavy, ragged sigh. Your mother came back over. The pastry box crinkled in my tightening grip. She came over this morning, asked for a glass of water. Then she sat at my table and told me to stay out of family business. She said you have a hot temper. But you guys will make up. And I'll be the one stuck living next door to enemies. And you let her scare you. I'm not a judge. Sweetheart. You're a witness. I'm an old woman with bad knees. What do you want from me, cops? Lawyers, courtrooms. I don't need that kind of stress in my life. They stole my house. They didn't steal anything. She shot back defensively. Your mother explained it. They took an advance. You'll sort the money out like a family. Did she threaten you? Brenda fell silent. On her TV. A doctor loudly advertised blood pressure medication. Brenda looked toward her kitchen, acting like someone had called for her. Even though she lived completely alone, she said your father holds a grudge. Brenda finally mumbled. She reminded me that he watches over my property when I visit my sister. And she pointed out that I'm an old lady living alone. And I really shouldn't be making enemies out of my neighbors. You were the one who texted me, I reminded her. Strangers at your house? That was you. I almost lost my mind in that hotel room. Forget it. I can't. You have to. Her voice hardened, losing all its grandmotherly warmth. You're young. You can buy another house. I have to live on this street until I die. Your mother could make my life a living hell. I can't even go to the grocery store in peace if she decides to start screaming at me. So you didn't see anything. She looked down at the floor mat. That's right. Nothing. I slowly lowered the pastry box onto her welcome mat. Keep the pastries. I don't want them. Natalie. Take them back. She wanted to say something else. But a car drove past loudly on the street. Brenda panicked, slammed the door shut, and slid the chain lock back into place. I was left standing on the porch, completely alone. It started to drizzle. I walked the 2 blocks back to my house in the rain. Sitting on my front porch was a filthy, mud-stained rag. Dad must have used it to wipe his boots when he was showing the place off to the buyer. I picked it up by the corner and chucked it into the garbage bin. Right as I did, my phone buzzed in my pocket. It was Dad. Well, done running around like a headless chicken, he asked, skipping any kind of greeting. I stepped under the porch awning, set my bag on a paint bucket, and put the phone on speaker. I hit the record button on my screen. What do you want? Dad, he let out a nasty chuckle. No. What do you want? Listen to me. Leave Brenda out of this. You understand, she's an old, sick woman. And you want to drag her into a police precinct. Mom already paid her a visit. Y assume. Your mother did what she had to do. Do not drag our family name through the mud. I'm dragging the family name. Who forged a legal document? His voice instantly cranked up in volume. You agreed to this, you told your mother. If you find a solid buyer, let him look at it. Now you're backpedaling. I leaned my back against the siding. Hanging on a rusty nail next to me was my old green gardening jacket. I stared at the frayed zipper, counting the broken teeth. I told Mom she could water the plants. I said, don't spin this. I never signed that promissory note. Who gives a damn about a piece of paper? Dad slammed his hand against something hard on his end. In the background, I heard Mom anxiously whispering, Pow. Keep your voice down. The house is staying in the family. We helped Ryan. Family helps family. Are you admitting right now? On a recorded line, that you gave the buyer's money to Ryan? I asked. A sharp, furious pause. Are you recording this? You little snake. Are you scared? Dad, don't you play lawyer with me? Natalie, I raised you. I fed you. And I have every right to take those keys. Keys are keys. I mocked him. But forging a signature is a felony. The keys were with your mother, you handed them to her. Which means you consented. Where is the $40,000? None of your damn business. It is my house. He exhaled violently into the microphone. Listen to me very carefully. You are going to call Marcus Vance. And you are going to tell him you changed your mind. You are going to tell him the family will refund the deposit in installments. Not today. Eventually. And if you even think about walking into a police station. Why? Because your mother won't survive the stress. And I'm not a young man anymore. Do you really want to put your own father in a jail cell? I want my property back. I said firmly. Is it really yours? He spat. Who helped you put up drywall? Who carried lumber for you? Who installed your back door? A licensed contractor installed my back door. And I paid him by the hour. Oh. I see how it is. So your father is nothing to you now. My father is currently calling me to demand I commit perjury to save his skin. He went dead, silent. Then, his voice dropped to a low, venomous sneer. You are an idiot. You only ever cared about yourself. The line went dead. I saved the recording. I renamed the file simply Dad. A second later, Ian texted me. Marcus is furious. He says if we don't bring him a solution by tomorrow morning, he's taking the forged contract straight to the police. I texted back, come over. We need to organize everything tonight. By noon the next day. Ian's car pulled up to my apartment building. He walked in carrying a thick manila folder, cursed loudly when he stepped in a puddle near the entrance, and immediately asked Brenda. I shook my head. Damn it. Damn it all. Ian groaned, dragging his hands down his face. Okay. Fine. We do this without her. Without her, we have almost nothing. We have plenty. He insisted. He walked into my cramped kitchen, dropped the folder on the table, and started laying out the documents like playing cards. The copy of the forged note, the screenshot of the deleted real estate listing, your text messages with your mom about watering the plants, your train tickets, your corporate emails proving you were working, your hotel receipts. He tapped a manicured fingernail against the hotel receipt. Keep this one separate. This proves that on the exact day, this contract was allegedly signed in your hometown. You were 300 miles away. They'll just say I gave verbal consent over the phone. Let them say whatever they want. The buyer has a piece of paper with a physical signature on it. We are going to attack the signature. You don't need to be a forensic handwriting expert. We just need to prove reasonable doubt and establish an airtight alibi. What about Marcus? Let Marcus file a police report about his missing 40 grand. He is a victim of theft, too. And honestly, that works in our favor. I picked up the copy of the promissory note. The signature under my name was way too broad. Too aggressive. The swooping letters were massive. I hadn't written like that since I was rushing through timed essays in college. Nat, are you listening to me? I'm listening. Tomorrow morning, we go to the county clerk's office and get a freshly certified copy of your deed. Then we go see Marcus. Then we file our own police report. Just stay calm. Don't let them drag you into an emotional screaming match. Stick to the facts. I swept all the papers into a clear plastic sleeve. The overhead light in my kitchen flickered. I had meant to change the bulb for months, but never got around to it. Has Ryan tried to contact you? Ian asked. No. He deleted the vacation photos. I haven't checked his page since. Check it right now. I opened my brother's Instagram. His most recent photo was still up. Dark sunglasses, crystal blue ocean water, and a blonde girl holding a cocktail next to him. Right under the photo, my mother had left a bright red heart emoji. Screenshot that. Ian ordered. Why? Because later on, when the cops ask where $40,000 in stolen cash vanished to in 3 days, we're going to show them exactly where it went. I took the screenshot, emailed it to myself, and dropped it into the evidence folder. We drove to the county clerk's office right after lunch. The line was typical for a Tuesday. A guy holding a stack of contractor permits. A woman bouncing a crying toddler on her hip. An old man arguing about property taxes. A security guard was leaning against a vending machine, eating a protein bar. We need a certified copy of a property deed, Ian told the clerk when we finally got to the window. ID of the homeowner, the clerk said boredly. I slid my driver's license under the glass. The clerk typed on her keyboard, squinted at her monitor, and looked up at me. The deed is in your name. There are no pending transfers or liens recorded. Her words were completely dry and bureaucratic. But hearing them out loud felt like someone had just pulled me out of drowning water. Ian elbowed me gently in the ribs. You hear that I heard it. Can we get a certified printout? Ian asked. Of course, the clerk said without a smile. We had to wait an extra 45 minutes because the office printer jammed. Ian was pacing nervously, constantly checking his phone. I just sat in the plastic waiting room chair, holding my folder with both hands, when they finally handed me the stamped, certified deed. I read it right there by the window. Well, Ian asked, no sale, no transfer. My name is still the only one on the property. This wasn't just talk anymore. This was federal proof. As we walked out, I stopped by a bulletin board in the lobby. I suddenly remembered how, when I was in high school, my dad used to make me forge his signature on my permission slips because he was too lazy to do it himself. Your signature needs to look confident, he used to tell me. The signature on Marcus's contract was undeniably confident. Ian, I said suddenly, I need to go to my parents' apartment. Why I need to find one of my dad's old tax returns or bank loans. Nat. What are you doing? Do not go over there alone right now. I'm not alone. You're coming with me. Ian grimaced. I knew you were going to say that. Mom opened the apartment door. She was wearing her usual bathrobe, but she had applied bright red lipstick. She was expecting company. Dad was sitting in the living room. What are you doing here? Mom demanded, blocking the threshold. I came to get my old stuff. What old stuff? There's a cardboard box in my old closet. It has my college notebooks in it. That was technically true. My old notebooks were in a box on the top shelf. But I didn't care about the top shelf. I cared about the bottom shelf. where Dad kept a metal lockbox full of old tax returns, car titles, and personal loans. Dad walked into the hallway, drying his hands on a dish towel. He glared at Ian standing right behind me. "Who is this guy?" Dad barked. "Good afternoon," Ian said politely. "I'll just wait right here in the hall. We don't want strangers in our house, then I'll leave too," I said coldly. "And the next time I come back, I'll be bringing a police escort." Dad tossed the dish towel onto a chair. "Fine. Let her get her yunk and get out." Mom stepped aside. The apartment smelled heavily of fried meatballs and anxiety. A bottle of blood pressure medication sat open on the kitchen counter. I walked into my old bedroom. The floral sofa bed I used to sleep on was still there. "Hurry up," Dad snapped from the doorway. I opened the closet. The cardboard box with my notebooks was exactly where I left it on the top shelf. I pulled it down and set it heavily on the floor. Then, as if by accident, my elbow knocked over a stack of thick manila folders sitting on the bottom shelf. "Watch it," Dad yelled, stepping forward entirely too fast. I crouched down. Spilling out of the folder was a 5-year-old auto loan contract. I reached out and grabbed it. "Put that down," Dad ordered. "I'm just organizing the pile." "Put it down." Ian stepped quickly into the room, placing himself between me and my father. "Powell, take it easy. Back off." "You shut your mouth, you sleazy realtor," Dad roared. Mom threw her hands in the air. "Powell, please." I flipped to the last page of the auto loan contract. Right there, on the bottom line, was my father's signature. Broad, aggressive, with a massive, swooping tail on the final letter. I pulled out the photocopy of Marcus's promissory note and held them side by side. Dad froze. He stopped yelling. "Look at this," Ian said quietly, leaning over my shoulder. They weren't carbon copies of each other. I wasn't a forensic analyst, but the muscle memory was undeniably the same. The heavy pressure of the pen, the wide loops, the dramatic tail at the end. "This doesn't prove anything in court," Ian whispered to me, keeping his voice incredibly calm. "But it gives the detective a very obvious starting point for a handwriting subpoena." "What kind of subpoena?" Dad lunged toward us. "Have you completely lost your minds? Who forged my name on this receipt?" I asked, holding the paper up. "Nobody." "Then why does my signature look exactly like your handwriting?" "Because you're my daughter." "You idiot," Dad screamed, his face turning purple. "Our handwriting is similar." Mom covered her mouth with both hands in horror. Ian raised an eyebrow. "That is a fascinating legal defense. I'm sure the district attorney will love it." "Get out of my house," Dad pointed a shaking finger at the front door. "Both of you." Right now. I pulled out my phone and snapped 3 crystal clear photos of his signature on the loan document. "Don't you take pictures in my house," he yelled. Suddenly, Mom started crying. No sobbing, no theatrics, just silent tears streaming down her face, ruining her lipstick. She wiped her cheek roughly with the sleeve of her bathrobe. "Natalie, please." "What are you doing?" she begged, her voice cracking. "We will pay the money back. A little bit every month." "Why are you doing this? Why did you go threaten Brenda?" I asked. Mom stopped crying. "I asked her to stay out of our family business. You terrified an old woman to cover up a felony. I was protecting my family, and what about me? Am I not your family?" She looked at Dad. She didn't look at me. And Dad said absolutely nothing. We left with the box of notebooks. I left the auto loan sitting right on top of the pile. When we got back to Ian's car, I opened the folder on my phone. The photo of Dad's signature, the forged earnest money receipt, the certified county deed, the screenshot of the deleted listing, and the photo of Ryan drinking cocktails at a luxury resort. Everything was neatly organized in one place. "What's our next move?" I asked. "We don't chase them down one by one. Ian said. Starting the engine. They'll just exhaust you with emotional manipulation. We need to trap them all in the same room. They'll never agree to a meeting. They will, if Marcus Vance demands it. He has the leverage. He has the missing 40 grand. That was the brutal truth. We drove back to Ian's small real estate office. 2 desks. A filing cabinet. And a stale pot of coffee. Ian printed out a checklist of exactly what to bring. What to say. And what not to say. No threats. Ian instructed. You speak in short, factual sentences. We have documents. We have a defrauded buyer. We demand an explanation for the stolen cash and the stolen keys. Period. The meeting happens at Marcus's warehouse. What if my dad asks why I'm there, you tell him? Marcus demanded all parties present. That's it. And the audio recorder. Ian glanced toward the closed office door. We start recording the second we walk in. But your only job is to not lose your temper. Let them dig their own graves. I grabbed a pen and copied Ian's checklist in my own handwriting. Deed. Forged receipt. Train tickets. Call logs. Marcus. Ryan. I stopped at the 6th name. Ryan isn't going to show up. I said. He'll panic and hide. Then we make it financially dangerous for him to hide. Ian replied smoothly. When Marcus makes it clear that the police report won't just name your parents, but will trace the stolen funds directly to Ryan's bank account, Ryan will sing like a canary to save his own skin. Okay. I exhaled. I need to go home. Go home. Lock your doors. And Natalie, call a locksmith. Change your deadbolts today. I called a locksmith the second I got home. A guy in a blue work jacket showed up an hour later with a heavy toolbox. He drilled out the old cylinder, installed a heavy-duty deadbolt, and handed me 2 brand new, shiny keys. I dropped the old, useless keys into a tin tea canister in the kitchen. They landed with a dull, hollow clink. I memorized that sound. That night, I texted my mom, meeting at Marcus Vance's office tomorrow at 10 a.m. You need to explain the missing $40,000 and the keys. I will be bringing my documentation. She left me unread for 3 hours, right before midnight. She replied, You are going to give your father a heart attack. I didn't write a long, emotional paragraph back. I simply typed, I am protecting my house. A minute later, a text came from, Dad, do not drag Ryan into this. Then a second text, he had nothing to do with it. I screenshotted both messages and forwarded them to Ian. He replied instantly, save them to the folder. I sat alone at my kitchen table, staring at my new house keys. I laid out the corporate ID badge, my train tickets, the certified deed, and the forged receipt in perfect, symmetrical rows. My phone rang. It was an unknown number. Natalie Miller, a deep, gruff voice asked. It was Marcus Vance. Yes. Your realtor buddy tells me you're setting up a sit-down tomorrow. I am. I'm not going to wait around playing family therapist. Natalie. I know. No. You don't know. Marcus cut in harshly. I handed your parents 40 grand in crisp, $100 bills. They handed me a signed contract and the keys to a house. Now I'm the one holding the bag. I'm not playing games. You are not holding the bag alone. They stole my property. Look. If they don't show up tomorrow, or if they start giving me the runaround, I am driving straight to the district attorney's office. Fraude. Grand larceny. The whole 9 yards. They will be there. I promised, even though my stomach was tied in knots. Marcus sighed heavily. Fine. 1 meeting. At my office. No screaming. I don't tolerate screaming in my place of business. Neither do I. And please, Let the documents do the talking. The call ended. I put my phone down and stared at the forged signature on the copy of the receipt. Someone else had written my name to steal my future. I grabbed a legal pad and wrote down my talking points. Who physically forged the signature? Where is the $40,000? Why were my keys handed over without my consent? I never actually asked that third question at Marcus's office. I didn't need to. Before I went to bed, I walked through my empty house. I checked the window locks, made sure the faucets weren't dripping, and turned off the lights. At the front door, I tested the new deadbolt. It clicked into place smoothly, heavy and secure. The next morning, Ryan called me. He called me himself, which he hadn't done in months unless he needed money. I was sitting in Ian's office. The morning rain was turning the remaining winter snow into gray slush. Water was drumming against the window pane. Ian pointed at my phone, tapped the record app on his own phone, and gave me a firm no. I put Ryan on speaker. Nat, why are you not answering my texts? Ryan sounded furious, but terrified. The travel agency just called me. They said there's a massive upcharge for the premium suite, and my credit card is declining. I didn't decline your card. Ryan, Mom just called me crying. She said you're trying to send Dad to prison and ruin my life over some stupid misunderstanding. I didn't arrange a misunderstanding, I said calmly. Did you take $40,000 from the sale of my house? Ryan let out a sharp, frustrated breath. I heard a hotel door slam in the background. Then, the faint sound of tropical resort music drifting through his phone. Look, Dad gave me the cash. He said you were totally cool with it. He said the house was just sitting there rotting anyway. He handed me the money. Okay. Ian grabbed a sticky note and wrote in thick Sharpie, "Let him talk. Do not interrupt." I gripped my coffee mug so tightly my knuckles turned white. How much cash did he give you? How the hell should I know the exact amount? Ryan snapped defensively. He gave me a chunk to cover the flights and promised he'd wire the rest to cover the hotel upgrades. You know how expensive these all-inclusives get. I don't. Because I don't go on them. Ryan paused, realizing he sounded like a spoiled brat. Look. Lower your voice. Dad said it was roughly 40 grand from the earnest deposit. But Nat, don't act like you were blindsided. Mom swore up and down that you gave them permission to show the place. Ian locked eyes with me. He didn't smile, but he pointed directly at his phone, which was quietly recording every single word. All the anxiety in my chest suddenly evaporated. I didn't feel angry anymore. I just felt incredibly cold. Ryan, I said slowly. Repeat what you just said. Who told you the 40,000 was an earnest deposit? Dad did. Damn it. Nat Ryan's voice cracked. Dad said, "We'll take the cash from the buyer now. And Nat will sign the final paperwork when she gets back." I didn't forge anything. I was literally on a plane to Miami. Now they're trying to make me the scapegoat. So you admit you took the money? Yes. I took the money, he shouted. But I didn't sell your damn house. Ian hit the stop button on his recorder as soon as Ryan said the words Dad, Mom, and earnest deposit. The office went completely silent. Through the thin walls, we could hear a delivery guy arguing with a receptionist in the hallway. Just a normal Tuesday morning. But sitting on the desk in front of me was the undeniable proof that my entire family had conspired to rob me blind. All right, Ian said, grabbing his car keys. Time to go see Marcus. Let them do the talking. Keep your face blank. I nodded. Blank. We scheduled the meeting for 11 a.m. at Marcus's warehouse. It was the same messy office where he first showed me the forged contract. He chose the location intentionally. It was his territory. There were security cameras at the loading dock, and a tough-looking receptionist who made everyone sign in on a clipboard. No one was going to try anything stupid. Dad walked in first. He was wearing his gray winter coat and carrying a white pharmacy bag. He saw me. Ian. and Marcus sitting at the conference table and immediately froze in the doorway. What is this? En interrogation, Dad scoffed, trying to sound tough. It's a business meeting, Marcus said, gesturing to the empty chairs. Take a seat. Powell. Mom shuffled in a minute later. Her scarf was crooked. She held her purse tight against her chest, like it was a bulletproof vest. Ryan was the last to arrive. He had clearly taken the first red-eye flight back from his resort. He was deeply tanned, wearing a thin, expensive linen shirt that was completely inappropriate for the freezing rain outside. He didn't look ashamed. He looked incredibly annoyed. Marcus placed the forged promissory note, the certified property deed, and my hotel receipts right in the center of the table. Then, he pulled out his smartphone and placed it next to the papers. I am recording this conversation, Marcus announced flatly. Does anyone have a problem with that? Oh. Come on. Marcus. Dad forced a nervous chuckle, leaning forward. We're all reasonable adults here. There's no need for lawyers and tape recorders. I already trusted you as a reasonable adult once. Powell. Marcus replied coldly. And I'm currently down 40 grand because of it. Mom looked at me with pleading, watery eyes. Natalie. Sweetie. Please. Just tell him. We're family. People make mistakes. Who doesn't make mistakes? I didn't answer her. The documents were sitting right there on the table. For the first time in months, I didn't have to argue, bay, or justify my existence. The paperwork spoke for me. Powell. Marcus started, his voice heavy and authoritative. When you took my money, you looked me in the eye and told me this was a family home, and that your daughter was fully on board with the sale. Dad glanced nervously at the recording phone. I said it was a family matter. No. Powell. Let's not play word games. You specifically told me your daughter would sign the final title transfer. You said she was fully in the loop. Dad took off his winter hat and set it next to his pharmacy bag. His knuckles were raw and red from the cold. Okay. Yes. I said that, because I knew she wouldn't actually be hurt by it. The house was sitting empty anyway. The house is registered under whose name Ian chimed in, leaning back in his chair. What does a piece of paper matter? Dad slammed his heavy hand onto the desk, making Mom flinch. I patched her roof, I built her fence, I hauled lumber in the freezing cold. Is that what family does or not? Whose name is on the legal deed? Paul Ian repeated calmly. Dad turned his head to glare out the window. Through the rain-streaked glass, a vendor was packing up wet cardboard boxes by the loading dock. Natalie's. Dad muttered. Marcus slid the forged promissory note across the table toward my father. And the signature on this contract. She says she didn't sign it. Mom started talking a mile a minute. She knew about it. She just changed her mind and got offended. Natalie. Please. Enough of this, you're destroying your own family. Ryan suddenly let out a sharp, bitter laugh. Mom? Stop lying. She didn't know. Mom whipped her head toward him so fast, her purse slipped off her lap onto the floor. Ryan. Shut your mouth. Why should I shut my mouth? Ryan threw his hands up, slouching arrogantly in his chair. You guys explicitly told me she agreed to sell the place, Dad said. I'll handle Natalie. I thought you actually handled it, and now my credit cards are maxed out. Marcus is threatening to call the cops. And I'm supposed to take the fall for this. Dad's face drained of color. It wasn't cinematic. It wasn't dramatic. He just suddenly looked old, gray, and completely pathetic. He reached into his pharmacy bag with trembling hands and pulled out a bottle of water. He struggled to twist the cap off. You couldn't just be a man and back me up for once in your life, Dad hissed at his son. Go to hell. Dad, Ryan shouted back. I owe 40 grand because of your stupid scam. The small office felt incredibly claustrophobic. Marcus stared at the two men with absolute disgust. Even Ryan quickly shut his mouth under Marcus's glare. Marcus turned his attention directly to me. Natalie. For the official record, do you confirm that you never gave consent for this sale? Never received a single dollar of my money. And never signed this contract, I confirm. I said clearly. And you have no intention of transferring the title to me, none. Dad suddenly slammed his water bottle down. Fine, the house is hers, you hear me, it's hers, but I didn't pocket a single dime of that money for myself. I gave it all to my son, to help my child. Ryan was 30 years old. He was sitting in a custom-tailored resort shirt, deeply tanned from a luxury vacation funded by stolen money, scrolling through his phone like a bored teenager. I didn't even bother looking at him. You took $40,000 from me. Paul, Marcus said, his voice dropping to a dangerous rumble. You gave me a contract with a forged signature. You handed me keys to a property you do not own. What exactly are you proposing we do right now? We'll pay you back, Mom lunged forward, grabbing the edge of Marcus's desk. Please. Mr. Vance. No police. We'll handle this in the family. We will get you every penny. Dad sat frozen, staring at the floor. Marcus didn't blink. I am walking into the police precinct this afternoon to file felony charges for fraud and grand larceny. The detectives can sort out who goes to jail. Mom clamped her hands over her mouth to muffle a sob. Marcus. Please. I'm begging you. My husband has high blood pressure. He was just in the hospital, Natalie. Please. Tell him. I looked at my mother. She was weaponizing my dad's health to manipulate me into surrendering. She expected me to sacrifice my house, my life savings, and my own future just to save them from the consequences of their own actions. No. I said. Dad's head snapped up. What no? I am not going to ask Marcus to drop the charges. The silence in the room was so absolute, you could hear the hum of the warehouse. Marcus quietly gathered the forged receipt. My certified deed. The hotel receipts. And Ian's printed screenshot of the deleted real estate listing. He tapped them neatly against the desk and slid them into a manila envelope. I'm heading to the station at 2 p.m., Marcus announced. You can come with me and confess to the detectives yourselves to lighten your sentence. Or you can wait for the arrest warrants at home. Makes no difference to me. For the first time in my entire life, my dad didn't have a single insult left to throw. He didn't scream. He didn't pound the desk. He just sat there, staring blankly at the manila envelope. As we walked out into the parking lot, the rain had turned the leftover snow into a gray, slippery slush. I almost lost my footing, stepping off the curb toward Ian's car. Natalie. Wait, Mom yelled, splashing through the puddles to catch up with me. Wait. Please. Let's just avoid the cops. Please. Natalie, it's out of my hands. Mom? It's not out of your hands, she waved frantically. You know your dad can't handle prison, his heart, and Ryan. Yes. He's an idiot. But he's your brother. We will pay Marcus back. A little bit now. A little bit later. You just need to help us front the cash to keep Marcus quiet. You still have your car. You have savings, you gotta keep your house. What more do you want? I grabbed the door handle of Ian's car. But I didn't open it. I needed to say this, looking her dead in the eye. I want you to stop treating my money as your emergency fund. Mom's face twisted into an ugly, bitter sneer. Wow. Look at you. Speaking so highly of yourself. After everything we sacrificed to raise you. You raised me. I nodded slowly. So you should understand exactly why I won't back down. I let go of the door handle and faced her fully. I will not bail you out, but I will help Marcus. I will sell my car and give Marcus the proceeds to cover a portion of what you stole from him. But I am not doing it as a gift. I am doing it as a legally binding Notarized personal loan. With a strict repayment schedule, interest rates, and your social security numbers attached to it. You will owe me the money. Mom's eyes widened with hope. Oh. Not? I knew you were a good girl. See, we can handle the rest. Ryan will get a second job. Dad will figure it out, and if you miss a single payment. I interrupted, my voice dropping to ice. I will be the one taking you to civil court and garnishing Dad's pension and Ryan's wages. Marcus can still press criminal charges if he wants. That's between you and him. But financially, you are going to bleed to pay me back. Mom's hopeful smile instantly vanished. Her face hardened back into a scowl. So you're still throwing us to the wolves? No. Mom. You threw yourselves. 1 week later. I sold my car. Not my dream car. Just my reliable, everyday sedan that I used to drive to construction sites with muddy boots and hard hats in the trunk. I listed it online. And a guy from the next county over haggled with me in the driveway for an hour. I let it go slightly below market value. I just didn't have the emotional energy to fight over a few $100. I took the cashier's check directly to Marcus Vance's lawyer. The lawyer drafted a rock-solid, ironclad promissory note. It clearly stated that Natalie Miller was fronting the cash to Marcus Vance to cover a portion of the stolen funds. And in exchange, Paul Miller and Ryan Miller assumed full legal debt of that amount directly to Natalie Miller. Dad sat in the lawyer's plush leather chair looking like a hostage. Mom sat next to him, anxiously twisting a tissue around her fingers. Ryan was 45 minutes late. Traffic, he mumbled, not even bothering to apologize. Have a seat, the lawyer said dryly. I signed the contract first. Mom practically begged the lawyer to let her co-sign the debt to keep the peace. But the second the lawyer explained the legal liabilities of wage garnishment, she terrified herself into silence. Dad snatched the expensive pen off the desk. Putting your own flesh and blood into debt, he muttered bitterly as he signed his name. You're the one who forged my signature. I reminded him. I'm giving you a legal lifeline. You wanted to handle this like family. This is how family handles 40 grand in stolen cash. I looked down at the new contract. Clean, crisp white paper. No forged signatures. No fake promises. Ryan was the last to sign. He flipped through the heavy pages. Stalling. Wait. Why am I on the hook for the full amount? Ryan complained. I didn't spend all 40 grand. Mom flinched. Ryan. Sweetie. Please. Just sign it. No. I don't get it, Ryan argued, tossing the pen down. Dad is the one who took the cash from the guy. Dad is the one who handed over the keys. Why am I taking the financial hit for his scam? Dad slowly turned his head to glare at his favorite son. I stole that money for you. I asked you for a loan. Ryan threw his hands up in exasperation. I didn't ask you to commit real estate fraud. You promised me it was handled. You guys figure it out. Mom stared at Ryan in absolute horror. Her face suddenly looked incredibly old. Not tired. Old. It was like she was finally, truly seeing the selfish, cowardly boy she had spent 30 years protecting from the real world. She opened her mouth to defend him, but the words died in her throat. She stayed completely silent. Marcus's lawyer slid the signed copies across the desk. He gave me a brief, respectful nod. Thank you for handling this directly, Ms. Miller. I was tired of chasing down the truth, I said quietly. The lawyer didn't say anything else. He was a good lawyer. He knew when to keep his mouth shut. Dad walked out of the law firm first. I caught up to him on the sidewalk. He was standing near a bus stop, smoking a cigarette. Even though Mom always bragged to her friends that he quit years ago, he blew the smoke away from me into the cold wind. Happy now, he growled. You got your house back. You put us in massive debt. What else do you want? I pulled my copy of the payment schedule out of my purse and held it out to him. This is your amortization schedule. The first payment is due on the 1st of next month. He didn't take the paper. You are dead to me. I placed the paper gently on the concrete ledge of the bus stop enclosure. I was only alive to you as long as I let you steal from me. Dad took a long drag of his cigarette and turned his back to me. I was halfway down the block when he yelled out behind me. You're gonna regret this. You're gonna die alone in that stupid house. I stopped walking, turned around, and looked at him one last time. At least your vacation was fully funded, I said. He didn't say another word. He just crushed his cigarette out against the metal trash can and walked back toward Mom. Everything that happened after that wasn't dramatic or cinematic. Marcus went through with filing the police report for the remaining stolen funds. Dad was hauled in for questioning multiple times. Mom went with him to the precinct. And every single time they got back, she would send me massive, rambling text messages. I never read them immediately. Sometimes I would open them days later. See? The first line, Natalie. How could you do this to us? And instantly delete them. Ryan initially threatened to move out of state to avoid paying me back, but a court-ordered wage garnishment tracked down his employer before he could run. He had to sell his fancy car to cover his legal fees. And then he basically ghosted our parents entirely. I stopped trying to do the math for them. I finally went back to my house in late April. On a quiet Monday afternoon, after sitting empty all winter. The inside smelled like damp wood and cold dust. The wallpaper near the kitchen window had started peeling. A dead fly sat on the windowsill next to a small terracotta pot. The soil in the pot was bone dry. The plant was dead. Mom never watered my flowers. Not even once. It didn't matter anymore. That evening, Ian sent me a voice memo. He attached a quick text. I found this while cleaning out my old forwarded voicemails. You need to hear this. I didn't understand what he meant at first. I sat down on a wooden stool in my empty kitchen and hit play. My own voice played back through the speaker. I sounded exhausted. There were train station announcements blaring in the background. Mom. I made it to the station. Please water the geraniums. Okay, don't let anyone into the house. I'll grab the keys when I get back. Love you. It was just a few seconds. An ordinary, boring voicemail. I had been rushing to find my platform, stressing out about construction estimates and budget sheets. But hearing it now, I realized that those few seconds held absolutely everything: my blind trust, a simple request, and the very last thread of a normal relationship between a daughter and her mother. I listened to it one more time. Then I permanently deleted the file. I set my phone face down on the kitchen counter and walked through my house. A floorboard creaked in the bedroom. In the living room, there was a faded, bright rectangle on the paint where an old painting used to hang. My parents must have taken it down to make the walls look cleaner when they were showing the house to Marcus. I didn't bother looking for where they hid it. Sitting on the kitchen table were my shiny new house keys. The heavy-duty deadbolt the locksmith had installed was practically commercial grade. Gotta be careful these days, he had told me while drilling the door. I had just nodded politely. I pulled the old keys out of the tin tea canister. The familiar set with the cheap, blue plastic charm. They didn't unlock a single door in this world anymore. The metal was cold. The plastic charm was scratched and faded. I slipped the useless keys into a small yellow bubble mailer. I walked down to the post office near the bus terminal and mailed them to my parents' apartment via certified mail. I didn't include a letter or a note. The postal worker behind the glass asked, "Do you need insurance on this package?" "No," I said. "It's just empty keys." She slapped a tracking barcode on the envelope, stamped it loudly, and handed me the receipt. I walked out of the post office. The air smelled like wet asphalt and the greasy fry cooker from the diner next door. A commuter bus was idling by the curb, the driver sipping coffee from a styrofoam cup. I walked back home as the sun went down. I locked the heavy new deadbolt behind me. I tossed my new keys onto the kitchen table. They landed with a quiet, solid hoot. The old keys didn't jingle anymore.